Hello, Internet. Sikes here. Just wanted to take a quick moment to thank you all for being here with me today. As you've probably seen, I am uploading the 200th official episode of Start the Beat with Sikes. 200 episodes. That is a whole lot. I've had so many cool people on the show over the past 5 years. Yes, it's been about 5 years. The official anniversary is going to be in April, so that's just around the corner. But pretty much it's been 5 years, and it's been a really, really fun ride so far, and I'm really looking forward to 5 more. Today, for the 200th episode, I'm going to be presenting you a conversation that I recorded live at podcast night at the Tolma just a few weeks ago, where I basically told the story of me to a room full of strangers. And by that, I mean, it was the story of how I came up as an artist and a creative type. I don't know. You'll just have to stick around and see what I'm talking about. I'm joined on this episode by my friend Toddy of the THRIFTY Podcast, who was kind enough to host that event and sit in with me on this conversation. It's a whole lot of me talking about myself, and I hope that that's not too self-indulgent for all of you to enjoy. I did my best to try to craft together a story and, tell my tale in the best way that I could remember it. I'm not a storyteller. I'm a podcaster, but hopefully it turned out all right. I think it did. Otherwise, I wouldn't be uploading it. So, yeah, without further ado, I'm going to present you now with my episode 200 of Start the Beat with Sikes. Sounds crazy to say, but hey, sit back, relax, and let's start the motherfucking beat! Oh, I'm gonna be real casual. I need to be, because this is a pretty uncomfortable topic. Actually, that's not true at all. Okay. How we doing?
Good.
I'm going to let you introduce me and then...
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm going to hide.
Okay. You want me to go? Are we recording? Oh, I can't.
I'm not even here.
He's not here, so I have to find it. I have to find it myself. So, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, thank you for coming to podcast night at the Tolma. PNAT 1. Great turnout. There will be more. Also, secret revealed, we're going to start doing comedy nights here, too. So that's going to be a thing. I mean, these are all comedy shows, but, we're going to do, sit-down shit and stuff like that. What's that? Oh, no, you're fine. So our main event for this evening, you may know him from Greywalker. You may know him from Sikes and the New Violence. A Pittsburgh celebrity of his own different breed. Between figuring some shit out, he's got some cool taglines as well, but music, art, underground, all about Pittsburgh. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Start the Beat with Sikes. He was here. He was here the whole time. He was here the whole time.
Hello and welcome to Start the Beat with Sikes. My name is Sikes and this is my podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone who checked out last week's episode or any episode ever. If you're one of those people, thanks for listening. And if not, I don't know, welcome. Make yourselves at home. And as always, there's beer and soda
in the fridge.
Thank you.
I listen to your show. And there is beer and soda in the fridge, folks.
Fun fact, this is, by no coincidence, the episode that we are recording right now is actually my 200th episode of Start the Beat with Sikes.
200, baby.
And it's a little fun thing. We are live right now on Facebook. There's only 196 episodes available. So this is going to be kind of, if you're watching it live, you're getting it in advance. Mm-hmm. So sneak peek. This is for the real ones out there, but for anybody else out there, this will not be available to the normal community for some time. So typically what I do, for those of you that don't know my show, is I sit down with artists. I talk about their stories, where they came from, their struggles, blah, 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 blah. Why we decide to do these things that take up all of our time, our energy, our money. It's like, being an artist is like, having an emotional vampire in your life that you have no control over. Why do we do it? That's what I talk about. So tonight, what I decided to do is actually talk about my story, which has been shared in bits and pieces here and there over the course of the past 5 years of hosting this podcast. And I'm going to put it all together, and Toddy's going to sit here with me. He's going to help me.
I love this because I've only met you like a month ago, but I've known you forever.
Yeah, so now you're going to get the whole story about what the fuck happened.
This is
how did this happen?
Too. This is brand new to me.
Yeah.
Brand new to me.
Yeah,
Local legend.
And if you know any of this stuff, I'm sorry. Deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the year's 1993. This is very young Brian in a hair salon.
Mm-hmm.
With his mom. With his mom.
Everywhere.
Brian's mom is getting her hair done. Getting them nails did. My mom was 17 years old when she had me. So, she juggled a lot having a little young shitbag to drag around. So I was at the hair salon checking out some magazines, and there is a Time magazine. An issue of the magazine, Time. Have you ever heard of it, Toddy?
Oh, absolutely. Time magazine.
So,
critically acclaimed.
Yeah. This issue on the front, it was Attack of the Video Games.
Yo, is that when video games were coming to life, or at least white parents thought that?
It was 1993.
Yeah, so they did.
So, you had Sonic the Hedgehog on the front and all this other stuff. So, of course, I picked it up because I'm just waiting for my mom to get, what the fuck am I going to do? There's no Snapchat. I was fucking bored. I'm going to read you a quote from this Time magazine Attack of the Video Games article. Okay?
Sick.
Johnny Cage kills his victims with a bloody, decapitating uppercut. Raiden favors electrocution. Kano will punch through your opponent's chest and rip out a still beating heart.
Shit.
Sub-Zero likes to tear his foe's head off and hold it up in victory.
Smoke them if you have them, folks. Smoke them if you have them.
Spinal cord twitching as it dangles from the neck.
Hot.
Renegades from the late movie? No. These are characters from Mortal Kombat, America's top grossing arcade game last year, and the focus of a growing debate about whether violence in video games has finally gone too far. And this is tonight's story.
Sick, dude. I love
how
it.
Censorship curates curiosity, a.k.a. how Mortal Kombat changed my life.
Yeah, let's go.
So, obviously, there's a picture in this magazine of Kano holding somebody's fucking heart. Mm-hmm. And I'm a little kid, and I'm already into heavy metal from my dad, who I mentioned before with Greg on the podcast, had Cannibal Corpse tapes laying around the house. I was used to seeing gory shit, watching fucked up movies. My uncle showed me The Exorcist when I was 8 years old on Thanksgiving Day.
Thank you.
Yes. So this was right up my alley, obviously. Mm-hmm. So eventually, I got a copy of it, and I was playing it on my Game Boy. The first copy I had of it was on Game Boy, not the best representation of it, but there was a swimming pool by my house, and they had an arcade in there, and they had the Mortal Kombat cabinet at the swimming pool. So I got to play it there every so often.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, totally.
Who was the character? Do you remember the characters that you preferred at the time?
Well, I preferred Scorpion because he was easy to play, and I just liked doing things that were easy because I was like, a fucking child.
Were you against Sub-Zero or on Sub-Zero? Like, because if you like, a lot of folks, if they like Scorpion, they were done with Sub-Zero.
Well,
if they like Sub-Zero, you couldn't say dick about Scorpion to them.
I'll tell you this. The thing that I was always really pissed about was going back to the quote from Time magazine. Mm-hmm. Sub-Zero likes to tear his foe's head off and hold it up in victory. Spinal cord twitching as it dangles from the neck. Mm-hmm. You could only do that in the arcade. You couldn't do it on the Game Boy. You couldn't do it on Super Nintendo. I had only seen a picture of it, and this was pre-YouTube. Sure. So there was a very long time where I just wanted to see Sub-Zero rip that
Do
fucking
it.
head off.
Do it. Yeah.
Like as a little kid. Like
Do it.
I'm actually going to hold it because we're getting to the next part of this chapter. So, school, I was never super good at socializing as a little kid. I was an only child. As I mentioned, my parents were super young. My mom worked all the time, and I never really, I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot of it. This is kind of like I wasn't neglected, but I was just kind of like there and just kind of figure shit out.
To your own devices.
Yeah, so in school, I had a bit of an issue. But one day, I noticed this kid, Maurice, who was drawing a picture, and it looked like Scorpion. Like he was drawing a shitty little cartoon of a Mortal Kombat character. So I was like, yeah, is that Scorpion?
Did young Sikes swear back then? Like, is that fucking Scorpion?
No.
Did you swear yet?
I didn't swear yet.
Okay, so you were still cool.
I was still pretty cool. Yeah, I wasn't a piece of shit like I am now. But I saw it, like, he was drawing Scorpion. I was like, oh, shit. And he was like, yeah.
Time to dap that dude up.
We started fucking like hanging out, and I was like asking him about like, how do you draw that? And he started showing me how to draw like the characters. And this was actually how I started drawing and getting into art, was hanging out with Maurice, drawing Mortal Kombat characters. And like, he was in the like kung fu movies and all kinds of video games and comic books and stuff like that. And it was the first time I was actually able to like create something like from my mind. Prior to that, I mentioned that I was in the music. I had like this, my dad had this Iron Maiden VHS tape. It was Live After Death.
I have it.
And that was like, I would like watch it, and I wanted to be Steve Harris so fucking bad.
Yeah, dude.
And his sick pinstripe leggings and shit playing bass. I would like listen to it. I had like a tennis racket that I pretend to play guitar with, very stereotypical shit. But that wasn't really the same as like actually being able to create something.
Sure.
So drawing was like it for me. It got to a point where like my teachers saw like an increased interest in the art, and they were trying to convince my mom to like get me into Kappa. I was in Pittsburgh Public at the time, but like my mom like did not give a fuck. She just didn't. Like, she didn't care. She didn't want to deal with it. She didn't have to come to school. She didn't have to do paperwork. In retrospect, I totally get it, because like she was fucking 21 when I was 4. So like,
and it's also taking sort of like a chance. Like, is this maybe 3 months of your life that I'm, as a parent, going to dedicate more than that? So I just think that like, she was never the most supportive of anything I did creatively. We'll kind of get to that, not to be a bummer. Yeah. But like later that school year, this would be 2nd grade, by the way. My parents got a divorce and ended up moving schools. So I ended up like losing contact with Maurice. How old were you?
The 2nd grade, something like 6, 7. I don't know how old you are in there, like whatever that is.
I can't remember.
I know the grades a lot of this happened in, but like age ain't nothing but a number.
Yeah, no, that's why I asked, because I can't remember how old I was in 2nd grade either. That's why.
But my parents got a divorce, and we moved schools. I lost contact with Maurice. And a big reason why I lost contact with Maurice, we got along really well, but we never hung out outside of school. And the reason why she didn't want me to hang out with Maurice outside of school is because Maurice was black.
Yikes.
And we grew up in a black neighborhood, and there was a lot of like weird stuff in my family about it. I don't know if it was like racism or just so much just like uncomfortability in the neighborhood, but it was always this underlining thing in my house. But like, for me, it was weird because this was the first time that I had been, always been told like, oh, like, you don't want to be around those people. It's dangerous. But like, I was in school with a bunch of black kids. We all liked fucking comic books and video games and shit like that. And the even funnier thing, there was only other person I ever went to school with that had the same last name as me was this kid named Eugene Howe, and he was also a black kid, so everybody thought that we were related, and like my mom fucking hated it. But like, it was like, to me, it was the first time in my life that I just like realized that absurdity of like, because it made sense. Like, it's like everybody was fucking cool. Like, I got picked on by some black kids. I got picked on by some white. You're a kid, you get picked on, but at the same time, it's like, you're getting picked on.
Identify like, oh, that kid picked on you because he was black, and it's just
Yeah,
like,
no, it's like
never. Why? Yeah,
I'm
I
getting,
get what you mean. Though,
I'll
yeah.
get picked on in the like on the bus, but then we're talking about like video games at lunch, and then whatever. So it was a mixture, and really this just ends up being another example of censorship curating curiosity
Putting
in
up
terms of like
putting
putting
a
up
different
those
type of
those
wall.
social walls,
Yeah.
and me being like, I don't know, this doesn't make sense. So I moved into a new school district when we moved, and it was in the middle of a school year. My mom got custody, and it was a total nightmare because like my dad and we really connected well. He was a dude that was into all the music and all this shit, and I don't know. I just didn't really have a whole lot to do outside of that. Like I lost my buddy. I couldn't hang out with my dad. My mom was around all the time.
Did
so
you
I was,
still draw?
yeah. Well, I was still drawing, and I was just kind of like hanging out, and I had a lot of time to just like get lost in my imagination. I kept drawing, and because I didn't have like all the resources that I used to have, it kind of like actually like blossomed the creativity. I started like drawing.
You had a taste, sort of.
I started like drawing comic books and like making up characters that were all just really bad ripoffs of Mortal Kombat. But like I made a comic, and I like would draw what I thought the levels would look like if I had a video game. I drew what I thought my website would look like if I had a website. Like it got nuts over the years with like all of these just
I get it. Yeah.
like cuz like I don't know. It was all I fucking had.
Well, do you think, like, because you said you lost contact with Maurice during this time, do you think, in a way, the creativity that you two had, the kind of compatibility, I guess I should say, do you feel like you still had him within you because you were creating the art that you two?
I would think of him. I mean,
it kind of started that. So, like, in a way, you felt like maybe he was doing this someplace else,
Yeah, I don't know if I thought about it all like that because I was like 7.
Oh no, I'm insane.
Or 8,
so you're
you
right.
know what I mean? But like, I would definitely like think about things that I would draw, and I would be like, shit. Like, I wish I could like show this to Maurice because like maybe he would think it was fucking cool. But like I'm in a new school, and we're in a new school district, and we lived around more kids that looked like me, to put it nice. And my mom was like trying to encourage me to like, she was actually trying to get me to hang out with kids, but they were like all like kind of like jock types. It was like super suburb shit, and like I didn't get along with them. Like looking back on it, I established at a pretty young age like what I was into and what I liked. Like I still like Iron Maiden, I still like Mortal Kombat. Nothing's really changed. So like, but let's get on. We'll continue. So eventually I made a friend at the new school, right? And it was this girl. Her name was Nicole. And we made friends because she saw me playing Mortal Kombat on my Game Boy. And she was like, are you playing Mortal Kombat? Like, I like Mortal Kombat. And like,
Game Boy Color?
No, it was just Game Boy.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
Yeah. But so this is again like Mortal Kombat connecting in my life coincidentally, and to my surprise, it was the first time that like I never really like talked to like a girl, and it wasn't like a crush thing, but it was just like I didn't think girls liked video games. Like, I was just a kid, but again, it taught me that valuable lesson of like don't judge a book by its cover or anything like that. But so like me and her were hanging out, and like it was super cool. We would just talk about video games, and I would show her drawings and stuff like that. And naturally, like other kids in the class started making fun of us. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like Brian and Nicole sitting in a tree. Like literally, I remember every time I hear that song, I think about it being sung to me because like we got made fun of for talking like that, and she was also like,
those type of kids always had cool shoes. And that's what I always call them, like the cool shoe kids.
Sure.
Because, like,
they were totally.
They had, like, no, seriously, they had like Nikes. They had like the coolest shoes ever. And I myself came from like a poor background, so I knew what people with like really expensive shoes were gonna pick on me. Like, no doubt. Like, it's just how it was.
Yeah, no, it was definitely like that in that school.
Like jockey
it was,
types.
Oh yeah, it was like schools having like football sports team starter jackets and shit like that. But she got made fun of a lot for her appearance, and like I got made fun of for talking to her, and it was like the second time in my life that I can remember like people telling me like who I shouldn't talk to,
Mm-hmm.
because like I had my mom being like, oh, don't hang out with black kids, you know what I mean, because they're dangerous. And then I got kids in school like, oh, don't hang out with Nicole because like, she's whatever.
So just hang out
just
with...
like people being mean, but being like, these are like the people that like I fucking gel with. Like I don't get this.
So just white boys only.
Yeah. But like, becoming friends with Nicole, it taught me that lesson to never judge a book by its cover, and like realizing like how silly like bullying is and peer pressure, and like it got to this thing where like I didn't want anybody to tell me what to do, and like basically that's like all of the sugar, spice, and everything nice of making a young punk.
Yeah.
So here we are, you know what I mean? Like it's evolving, through a series of circumstances, we moved again. I moved a lot. I moved probably at least 10 or 11 times in my life.
Okay. All when you were younger?
Probably like, no, with my mom, we lived in 5 different places.
Okay.
Post-divorce. So I moved around a shit ton. Always in Pittsburgh, but like we would still have to bounce. I'd still have to bounce schools. And when you're younger, shit's nuts. Mm-hmm. But so now, so I lost contact with Nicole, lost contact with Maurice. And it's like, okay, let's start this fucking over again. But at the same time, I'm still listening to music. I'm still drawing. I'm still playing video games. The things
that you have learned via these people or with these people, you're still kind of carrying, but you're carrying them to another place.
And I learned how to access like things like MTV, and like things are like, so pop culture is really starting to settle in.
Yeah.
I had a skateboard and like a chain wallet and a Korn CD, and it was like, shit's fucking, it's going off, you know what I mean?
Got the life. What was the video? Was Freak on the Leash the one where the bullet just traveled through everything?
At the expense of sounding like a total cunt.
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to Korn since...
You hung in there.
No, I've been listening to Korn since their debut album. Sorry, K-U-N-T? Huh? Oh, backwards N. I've been listening to Korn since their debut album. This is a side story. It has nothing to do with anything, but I would hang out with my dad on the weekends. And upstairs from my dad, I had a friend named Philip. Me and Philip would play Magic the Gathering. It was tight. But Philip had an older brother who was a skateboarder and listened to Korn. And I wanted to be that dude real bad. He was the dude that showed me Korn. I was already riding a skateboard at that time, but he was like, dude, you got to hear this. And he played me Korn. It was the first album. No shit. I swear. But I remember Life is Peachy coming out, and I remember Follow the Leader coming out. Yeah. And I remember being mad. Follow the Leader came out when I was in 7th grade, and I remember being pissed. Actually, no, 8th grade. Correct me. 8th grade. Came out in 8th grade, and I was mad about it because I was getting made fun of for having like shirts on that nobody fucking knew what it was. And then all of a sudden Korn's on TRL and people were like, oh, like I know what that shit you're wearing is now.
Total Live, baby.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I know what this is now. So it's like okay for me to like Korn. It's like, oh, fuck you.
They were always at 4 or 5. Like, because when Total Request Live first started, it was the top 5, and it was just Carson Daly, like in some back office, like lit from below. And it was like, it was just top 5. But then when he got to Times Square, that's when all the like Backstreet Boys were there in sync. And that's when they went to 10. But when they went to 10, there was also less video content because they needed to pack in the interview, stuff like that. But yeah, Korn was hanging around then too. But they were like 4 or 5. And I'm like, you got to push them up.
Hey, I'll tell you what. You can only pull a freak on a leash so far.
Yeah. Until somebody's got the life.
All right. Less Korn, more me.
The episode title.
So my mom is doing her shit. She's kind of on a whole nother planet at this point, and I ended up spending a ton of time with my grandma. And my grandma also lived with my Uncle David, who was very much an adult who never left the house. I don't want to say anything bad about him, but he was not the most positive person in my life. But one thing of positivity that he did bring into my life, which maybe in retrospect is not a positive thing, depending on how you look at it, would be the traits of being a collector. My uncle was a huge collector of shit. Movies, records, magazines,
Media.
comics, media. He loved all that shit. So I would kind of get put in his watch a lot because my grandma's a bit older, couldn't always watch me. So he would take me out when he went like record shopping and shit with him. And this was actually pretty tight because sometimes he would let me pick out things or I would just get to root around in bins. And this was one like we have a good bit of record stores in Pittsburgh now, but we used to have a lot more. And one day we were at this place that was in Oakland. It's no longer there. It is now a Cadoba, I think. But it used to be
the corner?
Yeah, it was a Cadoba on Forbes. There used to be a record store in that building. I actually think that they tore down the building and then put up all the stuff that's there now.
Yeah.
But there was a CD store there.
Mean, yeah.
And I was going through stuff and they had like this pile of shit that's like stuff that I guess gets sent to them because they're a store, like promotional stuff, posters, promotional CDs and all this stuff. And there was a cassette tape there. And I picked it up and I'm looking at it and it's like The Immortals. Mortal Kombat is the name of the tape. And it's like this like promotional copy, looks like it was printed out on printer paper, like real cheap. And all the song titles have like Johnny Cage and then a song title. Kano song title. I'm like, what is this? Like some of the names were spelled wrong. Like Raiden's name was spelled wrong and all these. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like there's no pictures or anything on it. It was just like a promo thing of something that existed
in that universe.
Yeah. So I took it because it was free. And turns out it was a promotional copy for Mortal Kombat, the album. Does anybody know about this thing?
I do.
So yeah,
I do.
So if you don't know, this was not the soundtrack to the movie or the soundtrack to the video game. This was something where, you know, like the Mortal Kombat theme song, like the test your might, dun 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 dun. This came from that. But in addition to that, there was tracks for each character of the video game that were just made as like some fun thing. By actually two members of the band Lords of Acid.
Oh shit, dude.
And they made this under the banner The Immortals, and they got some like studio singers to come in and sing, and it's ridiculous. If you ever get a chance to hear it, it's really funny. Like each song, like the Johnny Cage song, it's like Johnny Cage singing from his perspective about being a fighter. There's a Sonya one where Sonya raps from her perspective.
I'm in on that. I know of this, but I never heard it.
Oh, it is fucking tight. But anyways, it was my gateway into the world of electronic music.
Okay.
I knew it was a thing, but I never really had a reason to relate with it before this. But
Venn diagram.
I didn't know how to feel about it. Again, like I'm listening to Iron Maiden and, you know, fucking Korn and Green Day and like, you know, Smashing Pumpkins, Rage Against the Machine, like all that shit. I mean, the closest thing to this that I was probably even aware of at the time would have been like The Prodigy or like Chemical Brothers, because it was mid 90s and that's when you had a lot of that electronic stuff.
Prodigy had a lot of incredible live performances that they put on MTV. I remember recording Prodigy on a VHS tape.
Yeah.
And just like when my mom wasn't home, like up it goes. There was smoke. There was like.
So.
I'm getting fucking hyped. Go on.
It was tight. In the time frame of all of these things, the only person I really ever had in my life that would like encourage my creativity was my grandma. And I was doing all kinds of weird shit. Like I would be drawing stuff and I would show it to her. And I had like a toy little keyboard that was just laying around that I never quite understood. I had like this like really shitty like toddler drum set that had like paper drum heads. That was like a piece of shit. But I started hearing like, or recognizing that the noises on the Mortal Kombat tape were like the noises that this little shitty keyboard would make. So I started trying to like make songs.
Okay.
And with that and like the shitty little drum set, and I would
could see it's a little bit different, but they're making like the same frequencies. And
yeah,
I could
and
see
I would
myself
like
doing it. Yeah,
my grandma had this like tape player, and it had like tape to tape recording.
mm-hmm.
So I would just like basically record like me playing, and like I would write these stupid little songs. I actually have some of them still. I still have some of these tapes. My favorite, it's actually a hidden track on the first Sikes album, so you can go online and listen to it right now. It's called Psycho Man. It was written from when I was a kid. It's the hidden track on the first Sikes album, Psycho Man who lives in a garbage can. It's probably like beat me in the head with a frying pan. It's pretty good.
Okay. Love it.
But at that point,
dangerous.
I got to a point where like I figured out that I could, if you could play a tape back, like say you were playing a tape on the recorder, you could play a tape on the recorder, record it to deck B, and have the microphone turned on, and what was on deck A would play through the speakers, and you could also still microphone into deck B. So essentially what I was able to do was I would play the keyboard and like sing the thing and play it back and then hit the drums on top of it. So I was like learning how to like record music. Yeah. Even though I was doing it backwards, I was doing the drums second. But like
the process.
Yeah. So it was like getting me into like learning how to like kind of make music. Mm-hmm. Not really, but like recording in like this really like
what you were doing
in this really rudimentary way. And then so moving forward, we're getting into my teenage years, and like things are starting to change now. I kind of got a little bit too old for doing that. That was kind of like this phase in my life where I recorded these songs, but by the time I was like
a teenager,
like like 12, 13, that wasn't working. Like I was like really focused on being cool now. It's a new era of independence, and like
I can't imagine an era of you that you weren't cool. You like all these eras seem very
actually
cool.
I think the era that I'm about to get into is probably my least cool.
Sick. I'm ready.
Just because it was like this thing where like you turn 13, 14, and all of us you get this like time frame where like you think that the stuff that you grew up with you're not supposed to like anymore. Like there's so much shit that I had when I was a kid that I got rid of. Like there was like some toys, some t-shirts, and like other weird memorabilia that like got thrown out. Also, a lot of things got lost just from moving so much. And
you're adulting.
Yeah.
Like okay.
So we're getting into 7th grade, moved school some more, had a really hard time keeping like friends, but like the internet was starting to become more of a thing. So like there was like instant messenger, and also I was like old enough to use a phone, so like we would like call each other on the phone and keep in touch that way. Mm-hmm. So I was actually able to keep in touch with some old friends from school. So I'm in a new school now, and I remember hearing one time I was talking with a friend of mine that was still in Pittsburgh Public. And he was talking about how all of the kids in his school were getting really into graffiti. And I was like, that's weird. Like, I never really thought about it. I used to, my grandma and my uncle who I spent all that time with, they lived in Wilkinsburg, right by the Martin Luther King Jr. East Busway stop. And whenever I would go out with my uncle, we took the bus everywhere. So we would take the bus to go to like Shady Side, or walk down the Bloomfield to go to where Jukes is now. That's been a record store forever. It wasn't Juke, but or going downtown to Ides, or going into Oakland. Like we take the EBO into Oakland and going to stores I was mentioned before. But so I was always on the East Busway, and if you've ever been on the East Busway, it's fucking covered with graffiti. And a lot of the graffiti that's on there, well, a lot of the stuff that's on there is shit that's been on there since I was a fucking kid, because it's like some holy grail shit that you don't fuck with. Mm-hmm. And I remembered seeing the graffiti and always being like, oh, that's cool, but I never quite understood it. And whenever I like learned that there was people my age.
You mean as like a medium?
Yeah.
Like specifically?
I knew it was there. It was like art, but I never blew my mind like who was doing it.
Right.
And like learning that there were like kids my age, like people that
movement.
That people were doing this. I was like,
expression.
Fuck. how do I get involved in this? Because I'm still drawing, but I'm getting tired of like, I'm just drawing comic like characters and notebooks and things like that. And also I'm like kind of young and, Raging Against the Machine and like all this energy in me, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, fuck the system.
What you say? What? Ba-na-na-na.
Yeah, fuck the system. Fuck that mailbox. Fuck that stop sign. Fuck that. I'm going to get my name out there. Because, like, your ego's at an all-time high when you're fucking 14. It's, like, prime time for being a graffiti writer.
Fuck George Bush Sr. era.
Sure. However you want to put it. Like, I was just... the best way I could put it is that, like, I wanted to be a rock star. But I couldn't do it through music. Because I didn't have, again, my mom was like, I'm not going to fucking buy you shit. We live in this apartment. It's not going to happen. I mean, like, I had video games and stuff like that, but like a guitar or drums, it was never going to fucking happen. So like art was the thing, but like I wanted to do something bigger and like, really be known for what I was doing. So graffiti's like, here you go. Okay. So here I am, 14 years old. This is like 1999. And it really ended up being like, everything that I needed at the time. Looking back on it, a lot of stupid shit that I regret, like stealing's pretty dumb, destroying property's pretty dumb, getting suspended from school from writing in bathroom stalls is pretty dumb. Running from cops, I guess, is tight depending on your perspective, but overall it's like kind of dumb, all that nonsense, just a lot of shit. That a lot of trouble that I didn't need to be getting into when I was a kid. My mom didn't fucking need that shit. Like looking back on it, I was like, fuck you. But back, I was like, God, what a fucking dick I was. But hey, the positive of it was that,
well, it's also like it was sort of like the environment of being a bit sheltered. Like, no, I know of these art forms. I know of these mediums. I know there's other stuff out there. So it was almost like maybe if it was embraced a little more, you wouldn't have to do it in the shadow of the night.
Yeah. That was the thing. I just didn't. That's a really good way of putting it. I just didn't know. Like I'm like learning and figuring out to do things, and I don't know if you've picked this up through any context clues, but I wasn't necessarily guided in any way, you know what I mean? Like my grandma was just kind of like, whatever. Being fully transparent, she was kind of an alcoholic because everybody else in my family was a shithead. And so she would kind of just be like, whatever. And my uncle who I went record shopping with, while it was cool for him to take me record shopping, he was a piece of shit in his own ways. And my dad was off the fucking grid. And I kind of ended up just surrounding myself with other people that were just kind of as like with mysterious upbringings as me, you know what I mean? Like,
maybe
a bunch of shitheads had nothing else better to do but go right on shit at night, and nobody cared where we were. It just, whatever.
Ruffians.
There were, but I do want to get into there were positives that came from the graffiti. Totally. My art skills continued to develop because I kept doing stuff. I was doing bigger stuff. I was working in different mediums. It got me really into color. Prior to this, like it was a lot of my sketches were just kind of like pencil, ink. Like this was my first introduction to color.
You were probably on like paper.
Yeah.
Okay. So the different canvas, different.
I ended up, because again, all those graffiti kids were kids from my old school. I ended up bringing it into the school that I was in, and like I put a crew together, and in a way, like I kind of developed some leadership skills. Like
I get it.
I was kind of like the one that like started it in our school. Like,
did you have a crew name?
We did.
Oh, sick.
Our first crew name was TBCE. The Taco Bell Chalupa Eaters.
Okay, very respectable. Great, also great product. Discontinued.
Did I mention we were 14?
Yeah.
We had a lot of anger to get on the streets. Eventually it's funny, it's like I say eventually it developed, but like my graffiti height went from like 14 to 17. So it's only 3 years, but there was so fucking much that happened in that time frame, and we'll get there because that's like kind of where the rest of the story exists in those 3 years. Okay, so leadership skills. We got into a lot of shit, but we also like I made a ton of friends all over the city through this. So like networking, socializing, maybe not with the best people, but
Would they see maybe your
social
tag
skills
or your work, or was
you
it
would
vice
run into
versa?
people.
Yeah, right.
Like you just run into somebody under a fucking bridge. I mean, they might walk up to you with a pipe in their hand at first.
Sure, but you got.
But
your
it's
own
like,
pipe.
yo, like,
Yeah.
cool, not cop, not a cop, that kind of shit. As if I looked like a fucking cop. Would we talk about what
cops,
Can we talk about what I looked like when I was that fucking
would
age?
love
By the
to.
way, like
Yeah.
wide leg jeans, spiky hair, backpack full of cans rattling, just walking around like, oh yeah, not suspicious at all.
So you did look like a cop.
Oh yeah, totally looked like a fucking cop. But ultimately it got me out of the bedroom, gave me a place to belong. And through all of these people, eventually, like I was hanging around, I got introduced to the world of underground hip hop because there would be a lot of cool events. Like I would live paint at some events. There would be like black book competitions where like you would take your book and like you would just meet, like you could like socialize with other artists. It was like, I don't know, like total like
You mean
ego shit.
More locally?
Yeah, it was locally. I was like, I was like 15, 16 at this time, but there was like, I would still be around, and there was like some older people that were like pretty cool with us.
I know what you
and
mean.
would like, that kind of like let us hang out and be around. I was like at a lot of events painting, and I started getting around a lot of like local hip hop. And music was still my first love, but I didn't listen to a ton of hip hop. I wasn't even aware that like that sort of thing existed. You know what I mean? All the hip hop that I knew would be whatever was on TV at the time. You know what I mean? Like the best example of underground hip hop I was probably aware of was like Eminem. And it was always like way too aggressive for me. As somebody that like grew up listening to Cannibal Corpse, I was like, Eminem's like a little bit too much for me.
The weird thing about the weird thing about Eminem is like I think parents might have been right about that one. They were hardly fucking right. But I was like, I had a rich friend who would burn CDs off Napster and sell them for $20. I got the Marshall Mathers EP, and I got the other one with the trunk stuff on it, and I was listening to that, and like people parents' age would just be like, that's garbage. I'm like, that's what you said about Marilyn Manson. He's fine. And then when I got older, I'm like, oh no, parents were right about Eminem. You were right.
Totally. And it was one of those things where like, I grew up in that era where like, popular rap was all like gang shit and sex, drugs and violence and this and that, which is tight, but like
very tight, but also not the right.
It was like, I mean, like when you're a kid, like it was so stupid. It was like, it was like, that was like be the stuff that like my mom would hear and think that it was like, that's how it was. I couldn't. Yeah, but I mean, also, I do remember one time there was people that walked up to our car window holding a gun in their hand, and my mom sped off because we grew up in a bad neighborhood. So there was some shit that happened. Yeah. So it was like, there was like little things that happened. There was a stabbing outside of my grandma's house one time.
Yeah. I grew up in McKeesport, and so I grew up around like a lot of like, drug dealers.
You know what's up.
Yeah, I've seen some people get stabbed.
So, before. I mean, like, while like as a kid, like, I don't know, we're getting sidetracked, but like, I understood, I guess, like where a lot of that fear was coming from. But getting back to this, like being in the graffiti community, I was around all kinds of people and everybody was pretty much cool when I got introduced to underground hip hop. I don't know how that could possibly relate to the rest of the story, but let's continue.
It does. I mean, that's what a lot of your stuff.
Yeah. So in the middle of all this graffiti stuff, I'm still a kid, still video games, PS1 era. All right. Cool Borders, Tony Hawk, Final Fantasy,
Twisted Metal.
Fuck yeah, you know what the hell's up. Spyro the Dragon.
I played that yesterday.
Admittedly, getting back, it was a dark time for the Mortal Kombat franchise. A very dark time.
Don't I know it? A
very dark time. But, the OG games, still near and dear to my heart, you know. Would still play them. It was tight. So I go over to my friend Tristan's house one day. He was not a graffiti kid. He was a friend from another school. But we kept in touch through the internet, phone, stuff like that. And he was a kid that I still played Magic the Gathering with. Going back to an earlier part of the story. Mm-hmm. That motherfucker.
Yeah.
So he was still
into
games, still into techie shit, nerdy shit. never really, he was kind of
in it.
He was like a normal fucking 15-year-old.
Yeah.
So he shows me this game one day, and this game, aside from Mortal Kombat, would be the game that definitely changed my life. For PS1, MTV's Music Generator.
Okay.
And if anybody is familiar with this fucking thing, it's not really a game. And I've talked about this a lot. This is probably the thing I've talked about the most on the podcast is this game.
I've heard you talk about it before. It's interesting as hell, though.
It's basically an app for your PS1 that works like any other beat making program. Like, to shout out some old ones like Fruity Loops or Acid Pro or like Native Instruments Machina or maybe even like a very stripped down version of Ableton.
Yep.
Like, it was a program. It would open up. You had banks of sounds. There was pre-made loops that you could pick, or you could like pick from all of the preloaded samples.
If you had a great computer, you could download loops. It would take a long time.
You could.
But you still could.
I don't know if you could do that.
In the later ones, yeah.
Okay, in the later ones you could.
You were cooler than I was.
Okay.
I got on too late.
Well, MTV, Music Generator 1, you could like actually like sequence drums things, and like there was a piano roll and you could do stuff. So it was like, dude, he showed it to me, and like I was like, the rest, like I don't think I remember the next like year of my life. Like all I remember, I remember like going home and like trading in every fucking thing that I could to Funko Land so I could get a copy of MTV Music Generator. Because it was like I had a fucking way to make music. It wasn't rock music, but it was fucking music. And MTV Music Generator 1, it didn't really have the most diverse batch of sounds. You can make like shitty techno on it. And still at that point in time, the only reference for shitty techno that I was really familiar with would be Mortal Kombat, the album. So kind of like going back and listening to that again, like, oh yeah, this was a thing. And like listening to that to try to understand how to structure a piece of music in that style. Cause like, it was either that or like Prodigy or like Aphex Twin. And I wasn't smart enough to make an Aphex Twin song. So it was like, it's like I knew like Come the Daddy. So like I had a very rudimentary understanding of what drum and bass was. But like, anyways, it was just, I was starting to make songs finally. And I was still doing art and shit like that. And,
all that kind of fun stuff.
It was all in there, but not too long afterwards, they released MTV Music Generator 2 for the PlayStation 2, endorsed by Funkmaster Flex.
The man himself.
And it had a very heavy lean on hip hop, R&B, jazz, disco, like more of that stuff. And that was the one that changed fucking everything. Because in the middle of all this stuff, me and my friends had already starting to like write rhymes and stuff as a joke. So we were like writing goofy songs. We had a band, the Orgy Boys. One of our
I mean,
with classic tracks such as Empty Your Wallets and Big Fat Titties.
Who doesn't love big fat titties?
I have recorded versions, video evidence of all of these things. I didn't bring any of it.
Yeah.
You gotta be, if you want to see it, you gotta become real friends with me. Just come over and I'll gladly show you.
I had my own Orgy Boys. It was different.
So, well, yeah, that's like empty your wallets, give me your money. Come on, motherfucker. This shit, it ain't funny. Empty your wallets, give me your cash. Do it right now or I'm gonna drop you on your ass.
Fuck.
That's the hook from Empty Your Wallets. Would you like to hear the hook from Big Fat Titties?
Dude. Yes. I just imagine it's like big fat titties in my face all the time.
You're okay.
Big fat titties on my mind.
You're close. You're close. Slow down the tempo a bit. Big fat titties on my lap. Big fat titties. What I smack. Big fat titties. Dick attack. Big fat titties. We coming back.
Brian. I was just thinking about him. I wasn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I had
You
more
strike me as somebody
more
who
than
touched a
more than
titty.
I should have probably.
Mm-hmm.
At least 2.5 titties.
Were they
At
on your
least.
lap? Were they
At least 2.5 titties and maybe 3 areolas, depending. I don't know.
Okay. So mostly just the skin.
Yeah. But I mean, the rest is pretty much history from there. For anybody that doesn't really know, like my main thing that I do is I am a producer, MC, artist. I still do all of that stuff. I mean, it all started there. Obviously, I ended up getting a job at Taco Bell. Shout out to the Taco Bell Chalupa eaters.
Mm-hmm.
Saved up my first 3 paychecks to buy my Korg Electribe ES1 sampler, which was my first piece of hardware that I still own. I don't really use it. It actually barely fucking works, but I still have it.
Still have it.
And you know, so like that whole thing, all those formative years just really kind of hinge on one thing. You know, like I'm an artist and a musician. I got into a musician through the discovery of hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
I got into hip hop through the discovery of graffiti. I got into graffiti, you know, through the discovery of art. And I got into art because I wanted to draw a fucking scorpion.
Yeah, baby.
And that's how Mortal Kombat changed my life.
Yeah, dude. Now,
There's like, I just want to say, like, there's a ton of nuance in there too. Like things like, you know, becoming friends with Maurice and, you know, learning about like all the weird social shit with like that whole thing. And my mom being like, oh, don't talk to black kids. And then like, you know, getting made fun of for hanging out with Nicole. And it's like all this and like other just like weird little things in my life, or like finding out about electronic music because of that stupid Mortal Kombat cassette tape. Like it could be a coincidence, but like, I don't know. It's just there. And it's like an unusually important part of my story.
Yeah.
It's still continuing to grow. And it's
I could
it's
see some
interesting to like
parallels.
look back at my life and like how much of it hinged on like me doing things that people told me not to do.
Yeah.
Like Time Magazine being like, you know, is violence in video games bad for kids? I don't know.
Maybe.
Ask me. Do I seem okay? I think I turned out all right.
Yeah, you're great, dude. I'm always when I see a lot of your because I'm trying to be a graphic designer, right? And when I see a lot of your graphics and stuff like that, dude, it amazes me.
Well, thank you, man.
Never like seriously, it never like when I see your equipment, when I see all this stuff, I'm just like, how could I be this dude one day? And
Just
no, I'm
do
serious.
it.
Yeah, and
Like honestly, just like the whole reason I like can do anything that I do is because I didn't know anybody.
sure.
Like after high school, like
Mhm.
everybody kind of did that traditional split off thing.
Yeah.
And by the time I was 18, I kind of got out of graffiti. Like I had gotten into enough fucking trouble, and I was like the music thing kind of pulled me away from it.
Mhm.
And all the art that I was doing was all for like, oh, I got to design an album cover. How do I do that? The fuck is Photoshop?
yeah.
Okay, oh fuck, like I need a computer that can, okay, what the fuck, how do I do that? Okay, like just like, okay, and then you
Mhm.
get it, and then it's like, oh shit, I want a video. Like how do I make a music video? I don't know. You get a camcorder.
Mhm.
I have a camcorder and a friend that can hold it. That's
I-
a music video, right? Cool.
I actually, and I have to find it. It's something that Josh and I, through THRIFTY Podcast, we have got, I'd say within the last 2-3 weeks, but we had found a Midway Presents Mortal Kombat Alliance. Sorry. It's a like a cell shade from the game. So
Sick.
it's actually from the game. And I think there's like a 10% possibility it's under this tablecloth in front of us, but I will for certain give it to you.
Oh wow.
It's like 14,497 out of 2,000.
If that's the,
I mean,
if that's
no,
the,
that's not numbers. 20,000.
if
Thank
that's
you.
the actual number, word.
I think 14,497 out of 20,000.
I do.
If I find it, it's gonna be that number.
I did mention there was a dark period for Mortal Kombat. Deadly Alliance is definitely where it came back around.
No, that's when. Well, that's when they introduced.
That game is fucking tight.
Yeah, they introduced like 3D platforming.
Yeah.
So you could go up, down, through it, and then you could move around. They also, it's the only game of the Mortal Kombat series that you can't be Liu Kang in. Explain that. It's still cool. But I believe there are 15 old characters and 13 new characters, or 11 new characters. Like, not 12 for sure, though. So it's one of those numbers there.
Dude, you are an encyclopedia of bullshit, and it is fantastic.
Oh, well, I did see this a couple weeks ago. But, like, ask me, like...
How did you just randomly, like...
At the Goodwill outlet, we find everything. I just introduced a man's teeth.
That's true. That's true.
I just introduced a tiger head tonight, an easy bake oven. I also have a man's teeth.
Well, listen, I want to say something. I'm gonna be very genuine about this.
Sure.
I mean, okay, so you're great for being so thrifty.
Yeah.
Okay, but I do want to reach out to you and I'm gonna pat you on the back a bit here. Again, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this is the start of April is technically the 5th year anniversary for the podcast. Episode 200 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've never talked about myself this much ever, so thank you for sitting through it.
Oh yeah.
I normally have other people on that are more interesting than me, but what I do want to say is that in all the fucking time that I've been doing this podcast, nobody else that does a podcast has ever reached out to me to be like, hey, I want to do this thing, and I think it would be cool for you to be a part of it.
Yeah,
and
dude.
I think it's fucking awesome.
You're the main event tonight.
Jesus Christ. I think it's really fucking cool for you to be, getting into this, starting up a new brand, if we want to talk in business speak, pivoting to a new platform.
Yeah.
In 2019 and having just the foresight to be like, okay, like there's other people doing this. I want to network with them and I want to put together this cool event. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this in these 5 years. So thank you all for being a part of this.
Yeah, thanks for everybody for coming, for sure.
I don't know how many of you actually give a shit about podcasts, but
one or two.
Yeah.
Enough.
It's been really cool. It's been tight, and it seems ridiculous to do this, but I'm gonna do an outro. And that is all, folks. Thanks so much for listening. I want to thank my guest, Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis. Thank you for being there with me all these years. ABACABB for life. And that's all, folks. I'll be back again next week with another episode. Not here, so... But same time, same place, same channel. You know the drill. My name is Sikes. Start the beat. 2019. And if I could just get a hefty whoop, whoop from everyone. Whoop, whoop. Thanks for listening. And that's it. If you have anything else you want to say.
No, just to echo the sentiments of you. I thank everybody for coming. No cops showed up, so we're going to be doing this again until they do. And Here's the thing
Can
about...
you imagine cops breaking up the podcast party?
Yes. Yeah.
We could do a copcast.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Comcast.
But I think the only key to this is I don't have any important information that I retain, but I do know a bunch of bullshit information that is useless, but I will say I do know it.
Dude, you're going to kill it on a Jeopardy run by millennials. Like the Jeopardy in 2 decades from now.
Yeah.
When you're in
That's
your
gonna
40s
be
or
me on
50s, you're going to be on there fucking killing it.
Yeah, well, let's hope I'm alive. But yeah.
Let's hope we all are. It's the end of the night. Thank you all for coming out. Please drive safe. I didn't notice anybody really drinking too much alcohol. So, if you did,
take some Thrifty Podcast
be safe.
stickers.
Take some stickers. Be cool to the people around you. Don't take what you have in your life for granted, and drink more water. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Cool, brother.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for everybody sticking around.
Oh dear God, my hips.